Okay, so what is the architecture of AEM, right? We need to understand. We know that it's used to build the websites, and there's a Jetty web server that actually starts when we start the AEM installation. This is what we already know. Now you may ask me a question, hey, where is the data getting stored, right? And how am I accessing the data? How am I talking to the Java code, right? All these things we need to understand, right? So basically, for that over here, yeah, let's talk about any. Just give me a moment. Just give me a moment. Okay. Generally, any web application, right? When we are working on a web application, where is the data getting stored? You would have one kind of a database, right? Database could be a relational database where you have rows and columns, right? ID, for example, let's say I'm working on a books table, right? I'll have a book ID, right? And then I would also have the title of the book, and then the author who wrote the book. And then you would have one primary, then you could also have another table called book price, right? That will become the secondary column. This will become the secondary, right? So in AEM, the first thing you need to forget and unforget over here is there is no concept of tables and rows in AEM. Okay, that's the first thing. So instead of storing it in the form of tables and rows, we have something called as the storage model in AEM is JCR. Okay, JCR stands for Java Content Repository. Okay, now when I say Java Content Repository, right, it's a hierarchical based model. What do I mean by a hierarchy? A hierarchy means you would have a parent and a child, right? So the data in AEM is stored in the form of nodes and properties. Okay. In Unix, you would have a root. Root would have a child, and that child would have a child. Like for example, /var/mnt, right? Something like this. So even over here, right, data is stored in the form of nodes and properties. JCR stands for Java Content Repository. Now this JCR is just a specification. Now when I say it's a specification, it's like an interface in Java, which means it only has the method signature. Interface will not have the definition. So it's like a protocol. You will say these are all the things that I could have. Now when I have a specification, we need somebody who can go and implement that specification. You have different vendors who implement that specification. So AEM uses two implementations of JCR. Okay. Which are those two implementations? One is called Apache Jackrabbit Oak, and the other one is called CRX, right? It is Adobe's own implementation. This is Apache has gone and implemented this JCR spec. Don't read all these things, okay? We are going to cover. Just focus on whatever, wherever I'm highlighting, okay? So Apache's implementation of JCR is called Apache Jackrabbit Oak, and there is another implementation called CRX, right? CRX stands for Content Repository Extreme. Okay. Now, I told you data is stored in the form of nodes and properties. Okay, so how to explore this? Right? We are curious to see how it is getting stored. So the URL to explore the JCR repository will be localhost 4502/CRX, right? CRX stands for Content Repository Extreme. Okay, so I'll say /crx/de. Okay, so when I say crxde, the repository structure is available over here, right? This is the entire. So it begins with a root. Even over here, even in Unix also, it begins with a root. So everything is a node in JCR. So it begins with a root node. Very good. And then I see one, two at level one. There are about 13 to 14 nodes over here. Okay. So node is the unit of storage in JCR. It's hierarchy because when I expand, this is root. This is level one. Level one has two more, three, these many childs. Level two has this apps/apps/bmw/component. Parent of components is BMW. BMW's parent is apps. Apps parent is root. Okay, so it's a hierarchical storage model. Very good. Then every node that you see here has properties. Now, property means it's a key and a value. Right? There is some type to a property. For example, created has a date property. Created by has a string property. Okay. So when I click on anything here, this has a string, right? So every node has associated properties. Property means key and a value. So properties are key value pairs with a data type. So what are some of the data types? Important ones: string, date, long, binary. Okay, we will explore as we go forward. Today is like a 10,000 foot view of your entire thing, and slowly we'll go into every layer in detail. Okay, so properties are key. So you look at any node, it will have some value here. Click on this, the properties tab comes up here, and it has a key and a value. Then every node, right? So let's say as this, okay, just give me one moment. I need to take an important call. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, hold on the line. Having said that, now the job of an author is to create the layout of the page, right? When I say layout, he has to drag and drop the components, build the entire page like an image, a text, right? Build the entire layout, add the content on that page and display, right? Which means I don't know how to navigate to that URL, right? So what I can do over here is just remember, okay, for classic UI, it's welcome.html, and for touch UI, anybody remembers projects.html. Just remember these two URLs, okay, whatever you're comfortable, either in the classic or in the touch. Let me show you both. Okay, so you'll go to projects or go to sites over here. Okay, so over here you can edit, like let's say this is a geometrics. Okay. You open up a page for editing. Now instead of products, now let's say the author decides that instead of products, now let's call it as something else. So you can just edit it. I'm going to call this as AEM learning. Okay. Now the moment the author tries to make any change, or let's say the author feels, hey, I need to add a new page over here, so I'll say create a page. Okay. When creating a page, you need to choose a template over here. What is a template? We still don't know. I'm just going to choose some template and I'll say next. Okay. And let's call this as cricket. Okay. So when I created a new page, right, what exactly happened in the backend? Right, obviously we know that the storage, right, unit of storage in backend is a node, right? So a kind of a node would have been created. If you look at the URL after editor.html, whatever you see till the dot, right, is called as content path. So slash content corresponds to the slash content over here. And then you would have geometrics slash content geometrics en and cricket en, and then cricket, right? See, so the moment I created a page, right, as an author in the backend, automatically every node, right, you click on any node, you click on any node, be it this one or something. There's one standard property that you always see with mandatory true means you cannot have a node without this property. That's the meaning of mandatory. You can never have a node without this mandatory, without this property here. Whichever is true has to exist on every node. So JCR primary type has to exist on this one. Okay. So when I created a page, a JCR primary type will identify the type of node. Okay, so here for a page it is CQ colon page. CQ colon here is the namespace prefix. Okay, so if you create a folder over here, right, let's say right click, and when I say create a folder, let's call it as sample. Okay, see here it is NT colon folder. You see this? So this way I've added this point over here. Whenever I create a page, a node of type CQ page is created. Why is it prefixed with a namespace? This prefix here is called as a namespace. Does anybody understand general concept of namespacing? The reason you do it is everything is unique here. You cannot have one apps below another apps. So if I try to create another apps below apps, every node has to be unique, right? The reason is, like, let's say you have content, and below this content, let's say you have some path. So you will have content, and if you have again same content, there will be, right, you're putting the system under trouble, right? So to avoid this same word, right, you will prefix this with a namespace. So all the JCR primary types, right, which is a mandatory property on a node, will have a prefix. So we saw folder and we saw page. So what I'm trying to say over here is, whenever I created a page, a node of type CQ colon page was created. Do you see this here? That's exactly what I've written here. And JCR primary type identifies the type of a node, right? It could be page, file, folder, component, right? All these you're going to see as we go ahead. Okay. Now, any questions till whatever we have seen, whatever we discussed? Do you have any questions? Anybody? A logical breakpoint?
Rajesh, there's some lag. I mean, when you toggle between the windows, it's very slow. When you talk about a point, it is not the same on the screen. I mean, it's very slow. Maybe
Is it only for you, or is it the others also have the same problem?
I don't
No,
know
we don't
why.
have problem.
Oh, it's because of your bandwidth. I think you might want to upgrade your internet for our training. Maybe you can purchase a higher internet speed for
Okay.
this 20 days at least.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Rajesh,
Yeah.
yeah, can you explain me the content thing that we cannot use again that the same word?
Okay. See, here already content is there, right? The name of this node is content. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also facing the same issue.
It's because of your bandwidth, brother.
Mine is 100 Mbps.
Okay, anyway, I will try to be a little slow. Okay, so if you see, there is a slash content over here. Okay, and then there's another JCR content over here. If you had the same content, right, in a JCR, when you go forward, right, some of the concepts of REST. REST stands for Representational State Transfer Protocol. In REST, every URL needs to be unique.
Okay.
So every node name needs to be unique. So you cannot have same here. So that's the reason they have a prefix over here. You get my point?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. Okay. So now you may ask me a question. Okay. So now that I have all this hierarchical based storage and everything, what is the advantage that I'm getting by using JCR? That is obviously what are the features of JCR? There are 5 features of JCR you need to understand. Okay. First one, I've added all the URLs here. You don't need to worry at all. How do I create a page? Everything is here. Okay. First, let's say I'm working on this repo. Okay. So let's say I have a book called author is Sydney Sheldon, and the book name is, let's call it as Bloodline. Then author is Sachin Tendulkar biography. Boria Majumdar. Okay, some here Sachin Tendulkar, Boria Majumdar. So if I want to find all the books titled Sachin Tendulkar, what is the way to get the records titled Sachin Tendulkar in database world?
Select star from
Select star from books where title equal
books.
to something, right? I need to write a query. That is the only way I can get it. Do you agree with me? But with repositories, right, you would have a search mechanism. You don't even need to write the queries, right? The search comes in as a built-in feature within your JCR. All you need to do is, let's say here, instead of records, I would need to find the nodes. Let's say I want to find a list of all nodes called geometrics. Okay. The search mechanism is built in. Do you see this? When I click on this, it will take me to that node here. When I click on this, it will take me to this node here. So which means search comes as a built-in mechanism. Okay. So this uses the search. Okay, search is a built-in mechanism. That's the first advantage. The next advantage, when you write queries, how do you improve the query performance in a database world? Anybody? If you have 1 million records and you search for some term, how do you improve the performance?
Okay.
Indexing, correct. So how does indexing work? Can you explain briefly? Any idea on how indexing works? So basically you would, instead of having to iterate over every record, every column when you search for something, rather you build it's like a book, right? When you want to search for a word in a book, you will not go to every page and look for it. Rather you will look through the chapter name index and then look for that particular thing. So same way you will build one index, identify one column and make it as an index, so that when you run a query, it will only look at the index store. Right? So that way you will get the results quickly. Similarly, even in AEM, instead of this column, what I have here is a property. Right? If you see, this is a property. So I need a mechanism, right? Let's say, see, I have these many properties. So I need a mechanism to have this property as an index. So it is possible for you to go and create your own, like, a property here. Let's say I have pets. You could have these pets everywhere. Okay, on 100 pages, you could have this property called pets. Can you go on mute, please? I hear some background songs and all. Okay, so if you see, AEM allows me, there is something called as oak colon index over here. In this oak colon index, you can add what are all the properties that you want to build as an index, so that when you search for that term, it will actually look through the index. Okay, so all you need to do is just take an entry which is already existing over here, for example active. All right, copy this, paste it, rename, and I'll call this as pets. Okay, and then let's do it again. Some keys are getting entered. Hold on. Let's go to oak colon index, copy this existing entry, paste it again, call it as re. Okay, and then over here you'll change the property name to pets. Okay, once you make it as pet, because there's already I have created that pet. Okay, call it as any other thing. So every time, so when the moment you do this, the what JCR does is it will traverse over all the nodes automatically in the backend, and it will increment this count. The moment you make this as true, right, reindex true, it will traverse over all the nodes and index it. If it is false, it will not do anything, and then it will increment this count by 4, by 1. Okay, so instead of pets, let's call it as whatever property. Why is it not allowing me? Anyway, is this clear conceptually, everyone? You understand every single field here? When I say reindex true, it will index and increment this count by 1.
Hey
Yeah,
Rajesh, will it be, I mean, possible for you to repeat this? It's not clear, I think. Yeah.
okay. What is not
I
clear? What
mean,
part is
yeah,
not clear?
I mean, I think from the start, like you created
Yeah, we are
those
not understanding this, what you are doing.
I mean, hey, thanks for that. So if you, start with why you created the property name bits and
So that
how
it will
is it used?
traverse over all the nodes below this. Okay, it will traverse over your entire repository and then build an index. Okay, that's
No,
all
no, no,
happening in the backend.
no, no. First question is like when you created the property name bits, how is it actually useful on the, content web
When you
page?
create that, it will look for all the pages with property called pets over here, and then it will add these pages into the backend index store. Okay, we still don't know where the backend index store is. In the backend, we have something called index. Okay, this is not in a human readable format. Okay, so it
Mhm.
would build this index store for you in the backend. So then if you go and search for, like, let's say dogs and cats, it's actually running the query from that index. That's why it's coming so quickly within 0.2536 seconds here. Do you see this?
Yeah. But if you could show like this pets number 10, how is it useful on authoring side of it first? We are
For
not able to
authoring side
visualize.
and all, it's not useful. It's only for running the query. Okay, it's only for
Oh,
running the query. How to build it is by it's just a one-time thing. Any new custom fields that you add, by default, when you start AEM, all these 100 fields would already be there. Okay, only the new fields that you're customly adding, custom fields, you need to go and copy paste this entry, copy, paste, add whatever is the name of the property over here, okay, and give the name here. That's all you need to do. The rest of the things is taken care by your JCR. That's why this is called the feature of JCR. Does that make sense, everyone? You can choose what properties and nodes you want to index, right? So over here, you just have to change the property name. I'm getting this error because of my server, right? I have a corrupt server. On your server, you will not get this. I think that's the reason you're getting confused. Just save this. Okay, whenever you make any modification, you just have to save it here. And if you want to traverse over all the nodes and for indexing, make it true. So every time the indexing is complete for one cycle, this reindex count will increment. So if it's finished, it will bring it 2. Next time when it runs, right? Next time when you make it true, right? It will become 3. Again, when you make it true, it will become 4. This will keep getting incremented like a ticker, right? Now, does that make sense? Whoever asked me the question, Srini Asri.
uh, yeah. To be honest, trying to understand yet. Yeah.
Yeah, you will have to replay our video if you don't understand. Yeah, because it's very simple, right? We basically, it is all abstracted from you. That's where the confusion is. Okay, it's abstracted from you. You don't understand what is happening. The thing is, it will build into the index store over here. All the fields will be indexed to the index store. Okay, and when you search, it makes your search very quick. That's the reason we need to index. If you understand database indexing, this is very easy. Keep it very simple. Don't overthink over here. You just need to, any custom property that you add, you need to create an index. Okay, that feature is provided in JCR. That's exactly what we have added over here. It's just a 10,000 foot view. Don't go too much into the fundamentals because we don't know the structures yet. The third feature here is when you look at a database, right? Like let's say I want to work on an application. Let me bring the picture over here. I have a database. Let's say my timesheet page, right? Only I can actually submit my timesheet and then the manager will have a timesheet approve button over here, right? You will not have the approve, your manager will have the approve. Okay, and then for invoicing this timesheet, there will be some other set of users who will have permission on this in viewing the invoice page when the timesheet is submitted. So this way, for different modules, you want to have different set of permissions, right? So some pages will have only read only. Some pages you want to enable, allow them to edit it, right? So how do you manage user permissioning? If it is a normal Java J2W application, how would your data model look like? Anybody? You need to create 3 tables. One is called user table, where you add a list of all the users. Who are all the users in your application? Then you would have a user role table. Okay, so this primary key over here would be the secondary key over here. Okay, so I would call this as user role, and then this would be something like read, write, and delete, all these permissions. So for this user, and then module, and in the module, right? For example, let's say it is a invoicing. Well, let's say it's a timesheet. For user 1, let's say his name is Ravi, right? His age, details, all those you'll capture in the database. So for Ravi 1, I want to give him no read, write or anything. But on timesheet, I want to give him access to everything. So 0, 1, 1. This way you will model it. And when you're displaying that particular JSP, you will make a JDBC call to this database and then display. Do you agree with me? So I need to basically write code if it's a web application, right? So with help of JCR, you don't need to do any of these manipulations, do a lookup of this or anything, right? It's already done for you. So there's one URL here. When you go to the localhost user admin, adding new users, managing permissions to the repository, right? The only thing, entire repository storage of my AEM is on this window over here. Apps bin, entire application is stored in these folders. So if you look at this, when I go to user admin, adding a new user is very simple here. You already have an interface, create user. Let's say okay, when you create a new user, see the permissions is so simple. The entire snapshot of the repository, apps, bin, everything is actually come up over here. Let's say my entire, any page that I create in AEM, right? We saw that it was in content over here. I can just enable all these permissions. What is this permission? What does this permission stand for? All of these details we'll see later on. But as a feature, right, do you agree with me? It's just checking and unchecking. And the moment I save it, if I try to access a page that this user doesn't have permission, it will not. So to access anything in AEM, you need to log in. So for example, for Ravi, I created this. See, I only enabled permissions on content and nothing else, right? So this entire thing is not coming up. So if I log in as admin, it will come up, right? So this way you need to enable all the permissions, then only it will come up. So the point here is the user management is a feature of JCR. Right? Again, I'm reiterating, this is only to let you know the features of JCR. Okay, I'm not getting into the details of anything. Any questions till this user management, search, indexing and user management? Anybody has any question? This obviously this doesn't exist when I just install my Oracle, when I install my Oracle DB. These kind of features do not exist. So this is a very clear-cut feature of why you need to choose, why Adobe has chosen JCR over traditional database management. Then We also have something called as observation. Okay. Has anybody worked on SQL triggers or procedures or anything? Do you know what do I mean by a trigger or a procedure? Okay. So in a database, like let's say when a column changes, like let's say I have a price column, I have a share, a stock price table, and the stock price value changes. I might want to update other tables, for example, a user who has shares, right? I might want to update something. So when one column changes, I want to make changes to other columns, or I want to execute a function, right? So that I can have a logic in a function, right? That is trigger. So similarly, even here, we have something called as observation, JCR observation, which is a feature of JCR. The idea here is if a property value changes, right? Let's assume like I had a stock price stored over here somewhere, right, as a property. If the stock price value changed, I can execute a Java piece of code, right? So a good scenario would be, let's say you're displaying a stock price. Okay, one real life scenario I'll give you where it's used. Any site that I'm opening here is all AEM sites. Let's say I search for investors. Okay, if I go to the investors page of this particular website, it actually gets me the stock price. Okay, so in case there is a 5% increase in the stock price, I want to send an email to a set of users, right? So these are the people who have the highest number of stocks in my company, which means it's a clear case where I need the stock price will be stored as a property. Okay? And whenever that property value changes, that Java code will use the Java Mail API and send an email. Right? So that is possible because of this feature which is available in my JCR. And I don't know if you guys know this or not. Whenever you have a hierarchical model, right, the search is very quick compared to like when you try to search something or here, right? It's always faster than a database when you have a hierarchical model. Okay, that's another advantage. All these 5 features put together is what gives you extra features over a database. Any questions still here? What is JCR? How it is used? Why it is used? Anybody has any question at a high level? It's only high level. I haven't gone into the fundamentals. Okay.
Rajesh,
Yeah.
you four, right? Search, O index, user management, and JCR operations. That is the hierarchical model.
What is it?
No, I got it. Okay.
You need to be a little loud. Your voice is not coming up.
Okay, I said what is the fifth one, which where
Oh,
I just got.
whenever there is a hierarchical base, so Unix machines have a quicker storage compared to a traditional model because of the hierarchy. When you have a
Okay.
root, child, 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 searching is always quicker compared to sequential search. I mean, you understand what I'm trying to say, right?
Yeah, got it. Thanks. And one
So
more
in
concept.
the data structure, is tree quicker or is a linked list quicker? Tree is always quicker. That's the same mechanism why searching is quicker in a hierarchical model. Yeah, good. You were saying something. You had another question?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had something. This user management, you said you gave access to Ravi, right?
Hmm.
You gave him page content, view, edit, and all.
Hmm.
So this comes after the fact he logs in, right? We
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have any control over his login. Like we cannot change his login password and all. We cannot do that. It's only access to the repository or the content, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
I mean, you could still edit it if you want to edit his password. As an admin, you can do it, but not as Ravi. I mean, so if you see what I'm trying to say here is,
Oh, I didn't see the option where we could reset his password,
yeah, I
login
didn't
password.
show that because we have a detailed session on the user
Okay.
administration. We have
Okay.
detailed sessions on whatever we are seeing. However, for your curiosity only, I'm showing it. If you see, set password. See this?
Okay. 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 Thanks.
This session is to only explain the architecture, right? In 1 hour session, if I explain everything in detail, our entire training will get over in this 1 hour. It's only to explain the high level view. So JCR is a storage model. We saw the benefits. What is JCR? How to navigate to JCR? What is the advantage of JCR? Now, one is storage model. Okay. Let's talk about normal web application. When you have database, and here I'm accessing Amazon viewbooks.jsp or any page, how to connect my front end to my back end, like in MVC architecture. And everybody understands what MVC. Okay, forget MVC. How my Java code, if it has to connect to the database, we need to have JDBC. Do you agree with me? And this JDBC will fetch this data and pass it back to the JSP. Do you agree with me on this, everyone? Web application. In AEM, okay, when you have, okay, for people who don't know JSP or anything, forget it. Please try to learn JSP if it's still not possible. When you have JCR, my front end, right, view has to connect to this data model. Okay, how is that happening? We have something called Sling. This acts like a controller. Okay, in MVC, people who are new to MVC, people who don't know about MVC, go ahead and learn what is MVC. Model view controller. Any web application, you will have one view layer. That view layer is the front end that is given to the user. Model is nothing but the backend data, the data where it is stored. Controller is passing back the view to the model, passing back the model to the view, right? Data to the view, that is taken care by the controller. That's a pattern, design pattern, software pattern. Okay. In AEM, the JCR will be your model and Sling will be like your controller. For people who don't know this, you can just go ahead and read up this one. So Sling is used to access this JCR over the web, right? Because on my web, all that I would be seeing is this one, right? This entire storage, surely it should be stored as a property in my backend. Whatever I edit here as an author would be stored in my backend. So if I go to this particular product path, see this AEM learning will be stored as a path. How, we don't know. I'm only showing you what is happening part over here. Somewhere here AEM learning should be there. I'm searching for that. Oh, I changed it over here. Or let's look for a simpler page. Cricket page which we just created, we'll see. Instead of geometric cricket. See this? Somewhere it stored below this. How did I go there? Just copy this content path and then navigate to this path. Okay, and then you would see that this is there. Okay, so my entire backend is stored as some nodes and property values. So to change the front end, okay, if I change the backend, it should actually reflect on the front end. This is where you guys are getting confused. My instance is a little corrupted. Let me restart my server. Wait a minute. Then it will be easy. Just wait a minute. Okay, while the instance is coming up, Sling is a REST-based protocol. We are going to have a detailed session on Sling tomorrow. At a high level, it's used to access REST-based protocol. What is REST? REST stands for Representation State Transfer Protocol. That we're going to cover tomorrow in detail. It's just used to webify the content, which means whatever was on the back end, that's used to show up on the front end. Everyone clear on Sling at a high level? Yes or no? Can you respond, guys, please?
Yes, yes.
Thanks. Okay, now one is the front end data connecting to the backend and showing. Okay, that is one aspect of your application. You could also have third party integrations, or you could also have different systems. For example, you could have a Hybris e-commerce, you could have a Salesforce, right? When you have these different systems, right, you need some kind of an integration point, which means you need to have a Java, you need to write Java code, right? For example, make third party API calls, get the data, display that on your website and all those things, right? So you need to enable to write Java code within your application. Now writing Java code in AEM is not a straightforward thing. There is another protocol that we need to follow. Okay, in fact, AEM is already built on that protocol. That is what is called as OSGI. Okay, this is the framework that we need to use here. OSGI stands for Open Service Gateway Initiative. Again, it's just a specification. If this is a specification, it's a set of rules. Whenever you have a specification, you need an implementation. So which implementation of OSGI is AEM using? It's using Apache Felix. So see this, AEM is built using all open source, right? Apache Sling. These are the three layers. Sling, JCR, and then OSGI. Any Java code you write has to go to this OSGI. So AEM, it's using all open source, but they still charge around $100,000 for the licensing per year. Okay, it's a very expensive product. Why is it, right? That's because of the features, obviously. So Apache Felix. So how to view this Felix console is you have to go over here. This is exactly, if you remember yesterday, I told you when the server starts, you need to go to this URL. And on that URL, if you remember, we saw some bundles getting started, 446 bundle. Every bundle is nothing but a module or a jar. Okay. So it's a modular programming approach. Your application is built as modules or bundles. Okay. This is a module. Every bundle is nothing but a jar which has some metadata. When I click on this, there is metadata. When I click on any bundle, there would be metadata. And I could start it at this module level. For example, if I'm working on Hybris, I will have one module or bundle for Hybris. If I'm working on Salesforce integration with my AEM, I'll have one module or bundle. That would be a jar. And I can just start or stop at a modular level. Right? That's the advantage over here. So let's say my Hybris is having some issue. I can stop it for some time, fix it, redeploy that bundle, right? And then work on it. Right? That's the advantage I'm getting here. So every bundle can be started or stopped. And a bundle or a module is a jar plus metadata. Again, we have about 10 sessions in detail on OSGI. We have about 3 sessions in detail on Sling. That is when you will understand the exact thing. Today is only the architecture. Okay. If somebody asks you, hey, what is the technology stack of AEM, or what is the architecture of AEM? How is JCR beneficial over a database, right? You need to be able to talk about whatever I explained today. Okay. So what you can do is I'm going to stop at this logical point. Just go ahead with my, okay, every day you need to spend time, look at my recording again. If you feel this is fast, you need to look at my recording and then come back. Okay. You can, now that you have the server, you can view through the URLs that I have shown you. Just play around with the server for some time. Any questions still here? Anybody? I leave it to leave these last few minutes for questions if you have anything.
Yeah, yesterday you shared a jar file, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still getting open in my laptop because it's saying something error.
Mm-hmm.
I
Do
don't
you
know.
have JDK?
Yeah, I installed JDK, yeah, 1.8.
Can you share your screen? Anyway, we will debug. Yeah, I'll troubleshoot on your machine. We will finish all the questions for today's session and come back troubleshooting.
Okay.
Okay, looks like nobody has any question. Okay, people who have not enrolled, please enroll with your training coordinators. I think Srini is the only coordinator here, and so that you can continue the tomorrow's session. Okay.
Hey Rajesh, Amuda here again.
Yeah,
Would
Amuda.
you mind sharing the document? I mean, this
I
Word
shared it
document.
with you. Did you check
Okay.
your email right now?
Okay, I'll check my email.
Just check it right away.
Okay, one second. Okay. Yeah, I got day one.
Received it, right? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Today's session, anyway, after I end it, it needs about 30-40 minutes to convert it into MP4. You will receive today's as well.
Okay.
Now you're
Thank you.
clear with the model, right? Session, the notes and video will be